Good to have you on the show. This is the Omobola Stephen on Library from Omobola Stephen, your show on personal development and staff improvement. Now, the show focuses on expanding professionals who have disruptive mindset conversations to share to the audience of Library. Talking about personal development now is a lifelong process that we must embrace in order to be who we truly meant to be. Now it's a continual process, but we need to continually do this in order to transform from where we are to where we need to be. On today's show, I have Aaron Trahan, who is a leadership and performance coach and also an operations and strategy executive. Hi, Aaron. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Looking forward to a great time also, Aaron. Now we'll be talking about, I know that you're passionate about leadership development, most especially helping professionals find their path from good to great. Now, that's also good to know. Now, the question I'd like to ask first off is, why do you think that those fail?
I think just if we take a step back and really think about personal development and leadership development, I've yet to come across a professional who has never said, I don't want to see better results. I don't want to see better performance. I've yet to come across anyone who says that. So I think anybody that is really interested in growing, interested in seeing better results, I think we have that aspiration there. But the big problem, and what's most important to me and why I feel that this is much more than a day job, for me, this is more of a mission, is so many people just don't know how to realize those aspirations, to see better results, to see better performance. And what that results into is so much inaction. And there's a lot of studies that are out there. And one of the ones that I found most fascinating is, and this is studies and surveys given to senior leaders, professionals. And when asked, what % of your potential do you feel that you're expressing in your day-to-day roles? The results that came back are pretty staggering. And even for senior leaders, they only feel that they're applying 30 to 40% of their full potential in their day jobs. And so I think we have this big problem of the aspiration of wanting to see better results versus the actual how to take on and improve those development areas around personal leadership or personal development and leadership development. And that's really my big why. That's really where I'm trying to help professionals, is create those strategies to actually put action behind their aspirations to see growth, to develop themselves.
Great. Now, here in we both professionals in our field. Now, what do you think what do you think are the biggest mistakes that professionals often make?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you look at what are some of the mistakes that show up when a professional maybe has some success and really kind of taps out. Their growth trajectory kind of stalls out and they start not growing anymore. There's a downside to success and experience. And I kind of think about this as an equation. When you have a certain level of success, you start developing some experience in your particular area or domain. What can happen is complacency can set in. And you felt like you've achieved a little bit. You have some experience. If you're not careful, that complacency can put you into a comfort zone. People can start really accepting a status quo. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see is professionals get a little bit too comfortable with that status quo and with that comfort zone. As they reach a new level in their career, they start having a bit of a bigger fear of failure. They're not willing to be stretched and be challenged the same way they were early on in their careers. And they become very risk averse. They prioritize the status quo. And any time that we get too comfortable with where we're at, that's kind of as the famous saying goes, there is no growth in the comfort zone. So one of the big things that I continue to see and kind of the mistakes that are made is professionals quit learning. They stop really investing in that growth cycle, and they get a little bit too complacent, driven by the prior success that they've had. So the one big warning that I would kind of call out is, never let success plus experience develop complacency that can take you out of the growth mindset and put you into more of a fixed mindset inside the comfort zone.
Now that's good to know. And now talking about mindset, what importance does mindset, or what role does mindset, what role does it have to play when it comes to high performance achiever? Is high performance achiever, is it really never enough? Now I'm talking about mindset. I know it's very crucial for us. So I'd like you to share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think mindset for me in my work, I'm a firm believer that mindset is everything. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you'll always be right. And so mindset plays such an important role into us underachieving towards our goals or achieving our goals and raising the bar. And so I think there is a fine line. I think you mentioned it of, when is enough? And so I don't think mindset is the driver to necessarily push us to just achieving more and more and more. But what I do think mindset is a powerful thing is around continuous improvement. And, continuous improvement is the other side to that big mistake that we just talked about in the prior question, is if you look for the one sure way to stay in a growth mode and stay out of the comfort zone, is really prioritizing continuous improvement. And that really comes down to mindset. And that is, how can I show up and get better tomorrow than I was the day before? And so instead of thinking about your competition as something that's external, really the biggest competition that we all face is the limiting beliefs and that voice inside of our head that says, stay safe, don't push, don't challenge yourself. And so I think mindset plays such a critical role into the forming of thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and behaviors that allow us to continue to find out what we ourselves are truly capable of, making sure that we're utilizing as much of our full potential as possible. And when you think about the journey that we're all on, and I'm pretty confident that the people that are tuning into your podcast and wanting to hear the messages that you're bringing to the world, I think we're all on this journey of trying to find the best version of ourselves. And so on that journey, having a strong mindset of that belief that we can achieve, that we can continuously improve, I think is so, so important, and such a valuable tool to have along that journey.
Aaron, you a leadership and performance coach, that's your area of expertise. I'd like to talk about the importance of performance. Now, talking about putting or placing our well-being first before performance. How do you just suppose this?
Yeah, I think well-being is such an important part of it. And I think one of the exercises or tools that I give to my clients that I'll share with you and your audience today is really what I kind of call a success happiness tool. And it really boils down to three big questions that we can all ask ourselves to make sure that we're on the right path, we're pursuing the right things, and we know why all of that is important for us. And I always talk about the the most painful thing on top of not achieving the goals that you want to achieve is actually achieving a goal that you come to realize is the wrong goal. I've seen that play such a big factor in having that level of emptiness, having that feeling of, I don't know why I'm chasing what I'm chasing, but I have to just stay in the race. But the three questions that I want to propose to your audience that we can always think about to ensure that we have a strong sense of well-being on this path towards personal development is, one, how are you defining success for yourself? I think it's important to get very clear about that. No, not according to external standards, not according to your Facebook feed of what others think of you, but how do you think about success for you? Do the thought work to get very clear on that. So make sure you've got a clear definition of how you are defining success for yourself. Question number two, what does happiness look like for you? I think so many times when we don't have a clear definition of success, we're chasing things we don't really need at the expense of our happiness and our well-being. So when you can sit down and do the thought work of knowing exactly what success and how it's defined for yourself, knowing what you expect and what you're trying to achieve out of your own happiness. And then the big question number three is, based on those two responses, how you're defining success and what happiness looks like for you, do those two things match? Or are those two things in conflict with each other? So if they're in conflict, meaning that based on your definitions, it may be difficult to have success and happiness at the same time, that's a great indicator that you need to change your approach, and it could impact negatively your well-being. Where vice versa, if your definition of success and how you're defining happiness are very aligned, I think the key to well-being is being able to achieve both at the same time. And so few people are able to do that because they don't have clear definitions of what each one looks like. And they get to a point where they kind of realize later on in their lives, what was the point of achieving this success when I gave up all of my happiness to do it? That's not a strong sense of well-being. And so I would encourage everybody to go through this clarity exercise and make sure how you're defining success matches, is aligned with, and creates harmony with how you want to see happiness in your life. If you can make sure those two things match, it's just a great way to ensure that you're on the path for a positive sense of well-being.
Thank you, Aaron, for your insight. Now, moving on, I'd like you to talk about how important it is for failure. Now, in terms of getting to your destination, now we learn about, or we hear people say failure is success turned out. Now I'd like you to talk a bit about why is it important to fail, or how can we avoid failing? Now, when we ask this question, it seems that we are tending towards perfection, and I would like you to talk about that. Also, I would like you to share your thoughts on when someone keeps failing at every effort they put in. What do you think is the problem? And what's your take, and also what's your advice on someone who keeps failing at every point in time?
Yeah. So I think, failure is one of those big words that a lot of people almost treat like fire, right? We know when we touch fire, we're going to get burned. Failure for a lot of people is something that just needs to be avoided. I can't risk failure. I don't want to fail. We almost have this attachment of our identities to our results. And so there's this feeling that if I fail, that's going to be an identity crisis. It's some type of reflection on who we are. I I'd like to propose a different perspective on how we can all think about failure. And the point that I like to make is failure is a part of success. It is not something to be avoided. It is something that is inevitably going to show up along the journey of you getting to the place you want to get to. And if failure doesn't show up, then you really need to re-examine your goals. Is it challenging enough? Is it going to stretch you enough? And so first and foremost, I think failure we almost need to change our relationship with it to where don't treat it like fire and it's something that if we touch, we get burned. I'd like to think of failure as an incredible teacher. And so to your question of, well, what happens to those people that are experiencing a lot of failure along the way? I think the best advice I would give to those people is to focus on being a great student. Failure is going to be an unbelievable teacher, but we've got to be great students to be able to learn from those lessons, really take the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience that failure brings to us. And so don't think of failure as something bad that has to be avoided. I would add the perspective of think of failure as a learning loop, that every time we fail, we get significantly smarter, significantly more experience, and we have newfound wisdom that we didn't have before we failed. That is going to help you ultimately over the long term become more successful. And so I think of failure as just an incredible learning feedback loop that the world gives us that actually helps us accelerate the path to success, doesn't detract us from success. And so another reframing of the definition and a question that I would like to ask your audience is imagine what your world and your life would look like if you change the definition of failure from not achieving something or not delivering the desired result, and instead think about failure as being defined as not trying. I think if we change that definition from not achieving to not trying, I think it can have some really, really substantial impacts on the success and growth journey that you're on. Kind of leading back to what we were discussing earlier, so many people never fully realize their full potential and reach the best version simply because they don't take action. And the reason they don't take action is because of the fear of failure. So never let the fear of failure create inaction. Inaction's always going to be a killer for growth. So yeah, I think it's just a healthy exercise to change our relationship with failure, embrace it. That doesn't mean we want to try to fail, but when failure inevitably happens, almost thank the universe because we just received a brilliant teaching from the world. We just got to be a good student to show up and accept those learnings and reapply it towards more action. So failure is a great teacher. We just have to be good students.
Now you work with leaders. Now, do you when you're working with these leaders, what have you found out to be their current state? And as a professional in your field, what tips or what strategies do you provide for them in helping them to design and gain clarity for what the ideal states you really need to look like?
Yeah, so I'll share a little bit about my 5-level methodology of think of it as no different than we're building a house. With every house, you need a strong foundation, and that always starts with awareness. You can't enhance or improve something you're not aware of. So awareness is such a critical foundational component, is where the work that I have with my leadership clients is where we always start. So how we build awareness is knowing those things that we want to develop, knowing what we want to improve, knowing what may be getting in our way, and painting a very accurate picture of where we currently are. If we don't have a good understanding of where our current state is, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it's going to be very difficult to build on top of that. So we always start with getting a strong foundation of awareness, knowing what brings out the best in us, knowing what's going well, knowing what situations bring out the worst in us, and really start there. After awareness, we then move to clarity. Awareness gives us that introspective, view of kind of where we currently are. With clarity, we can now look out and start being able to build the path ahead. Kind of going back to some of the questions that I asked earlier, we can now start to clearly define what success looks like. We can clearly define what happiness looks like. We can clearly start to put the pieces in place of where do I have blind spots that I may need to create some feedback loops on. Once we have outward looking clarity, we then move to the milestones and the goals. This is the portion that really helps build the bridge. So if we have a current state, think of that as an island. We have the ideal state, that's another island. When we get to that third level, we can set the goal. We can put the right milestones in place, and that becomes the bridge that we can build to take us from current state to ideal state. The fourth level is around thought partnership. So we just talked about failure. The one thing I can guarantee you, when you're going from your current state to your ideal state, obstacles are going to show up along the journey. There's going to be some failures. There's going to be some setbacks. So make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right partnerships of people you can go to help stretch your thinking, to help you see things from a completely different perspective, and that can tackle those problems by being able to see them through an entirely different lens. So it's so critical for us to be able to get out of our own heads, have a partnership around us of people that can stretch our thoughts and insights. And that leads us to the last level, which is accountability. So once we know where we're at from an awareness standpoint, once we have the clarity of knowing where we want to go, once we have the goals and the milestones that serve as the path to get there, we've got the help that we need around us to help us overcome obstacles and issues that show up along the way. Then it comes down to accountability of making sure we do what we say we're going to do. And ideally, that's kind of an external partner that can help us do that. So that's really the 5 levels of where the work starts with the leaders that I work with and where it ends. If you can make sure that all 5 of those things are in place, the probability of achieving success is overwhelmingly good.
Great having you once again, Aaron Trahan. Really appreciate your thoughts on today's show. Do you have any projects in the pipeline or any interesting news you would like to share with my audience?
No, other than I'm constantly sharing things out to the world around personal development and leadership development on LinkedIn. So feel free to go to LinkedIn. Let's connect there. Feel free to send me a message, or if you want to set up a growth discussion, by all means, I'd be open for that. But I try to deliver value through my LinkedIn community every single day on all things personal development. So if you like what I said here today, you can find a lot more of it there.
Absolutely. Any parting words?
No, just always keep growing, always stay a student, and being a lifelong learner is such a competitive advantage that never goes away. So keep learning.
Thanks for the motivation, parents. I'd like you to share a bit about the social media news and your website.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is kind of the, just at Aaron Trahan is where you can find me there, founder of Performance Mindset Coaching. That's my company. And the website, which is actually a new website launching this week, is www.performancemindsetcoaching.com. So that's where you can find how to get in touch with me, how to work with me, what I'm up to, what I'm doing, and what I'm sharing in terms of personal development and leadership development tools out to the world.
Absolutely. I wish you best of luck, Karen, in all of the projects you're embarking for now and in the subsequent ones.
Thank you.
All right. Good having Karen and share his thoughts on today's show. Now, if you like to catch up with any missed episodes of Like Well Lead, you can do so on any consultation platforms or any distribution platforms. You go into online and you really have a great time listening to experts share their thoughts on topics or subjects on the personal development and self-improvement. I need you to stay safe always. I talk soon.